Welcome to this 7 Insider event, the latest in our photo editors series. It's a great pleasure to welcome you, Fiona, as one of our editors. We've been trying for a long time to find a spot in your schedule to have you, so it's great that that's now possible. As people probably know, Fiona is head of photography at Guardian News and Media, based in London, and last year was also the chair of the global jury for the World Press Photo Contest. And as we were just discussing, back recently from African Photo Fair, lots of experience in the field. To kick off, Fiona, because you're going to do a little bit of a presentation taking us through the work that you do, tell us about your responsibilities at The Guardian as head of photography and how you came to be a photo editor.
Okay, well, I'll tell you how I came to be a photo editor. When I was a young student, I had ideas about journalism, and I really kind of imagined myself sort of, writing fancy features on a lovely glossy women's magazine. And so off I went to journalism college to learn how to write. And I realized then that actually I'm not a very good writer. In all honesty, it's not my greatest talent. And I found that the process was very difficult for me. But I completed my course, which gave me a kind of a breadth of experience in, layout and sub-editing, headline writing, vox popping at the local shopping centre, all sorts of journalistic experience at quite a basic level. I went to work for a magazine, and it was there that I realised that my strengths were actually more in sort of layout and visual storytelling, and selecting pictures that spoke to people. So I think, it's one of those sort of moments in your life. I hope that everybody has that moment where you learn what your strengths are, and that if you're going to be successful, you should play to those strengths and kind of, don't keep banging on down a path at something you're not great at. Happily, it worked out really well for me. So I arrived at the Guardian after working for a number of other newspapers on their photo desks, and I've kind of risen through the ranks here. And my primary calling really is to work in news and documentary reportage photography. But that's great at the Guardian. News is our core business, so it's been a really good fit for me. And now I lead the team as the head of photography. I mean, I must kind of emphasize that as well, that we are a team of photo editors. There's about 25 photo editors here altogether, and every one of the team, they're incredibly experienced people. And, I think for all of us, photography is not a living, it's actually a way of life, and it's a passion. So it's not difficult for us to really enjoy this job that we do. So yes, on a sort of day-to-day basis, I'm leading the team. I'm advising on kind of ethics and direction of travel. I'm helping to unearth really good stories, photo-led stories, visual stories. And it is my absolute kind of aim and mission at The Guardian to publish the best and most well-rounded photography in the world.
Fantastic.
Although we don't have the deepest pocket here.
I heard on a podcast that you gave after being chair of the World Press Photo Jury that you and your team deal with something like 30,000 images a day coming in from various.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, give us a sense of the scale of the task.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's kind of slightly absurd. I mean, I've been here for such a long time, but I think when 9/11 happened, we were at that time receiving approximately 2,000 pictures a day. And these pictures are coming to us from, the agencies that we subscribe to. So Associated Press, Reuters, Getty, Shutterstock. So all of those like really, really big, hefty news agencies are filing their pictures into us from midnight to midnight. And we also receive pictures from any freelance photographers who have our FTP details, and all of our own photographers around, people that we're commissioning all around the world are also filing into that system. So we as a team sift through those pictures every day, very forensically as well, because I hate the idea that a picture, an astonishing picture will appear on a competitor's website or on a competitor's front page that we have not considered. So we're really rigorous at looking through everything, and we do so with already the kind of news agenda of the day in mind. So we're kind of we're marrying these pictures up to the stories that we know are coming down the pipeline. And also often we're finding stories that our foreign desk or our national desk haven't spotted yet. So, but it is very forensic, and more than one pair of eyes is really kind of crucial, because it's 30,000 pictures a day is overwhelming.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, during your time at the Guardian, what would you say has been kind of the biggest change in the visual economy in the photographic world that you've experienced?
I mean, I think we've had many like crossroad points. So certainly when I started, I mean, this is going to kind of come as a bit, might sound a bit old hat to people listening, but once upon a time we had photographers who were shooting on film, and then you had to courier their film back to the desk and get it processed, and then we had to make a selection and all of that. We did it as quickly as we could, but it was a slow process. So the first kind of thing that digital photography has done for us is that thing that, from the very moment of you pressing the shutter on your camera, it's seconds before it lands on my desk. Yeah. And that brings with it, some incredible opportunity to be really fast with the news. But it also means there are times when you've got to pause and be absolutely certain of a set of circumstances before you go ahead and publish. I mean, I can give you a couple of examples of that. So say there was we had a kind of sequence of terror attacks happening in London over a period of time a few years ago. And London's quite easy to move around, so we were getting photographs into the desk, within minutes of people having been, very badly injured, perhaps critically injured. And had we published those pictures without stopping to check what had happened to those people, then their loved ones might have known that they had been involved by clicking on our website, and that's not what we would want. And especially if we didn't know that those people were, safe, or if they had, sadly died. So there are moments where we just have to measure ourselves and pause and be sure and check and make, be totally certain of what we're going to publish. So good measure. And then there's also been that kind of development of video as well. So I think this is a question that a lot of photographers ask themselves, should they be making video? Does video, eliminate the still image? And for a moment there, we were all just kind of poised, waiting to see what this would bring. And actually, what's been quite interesting is that we've learned the two can completely coexist.
Yes.
They all have a place.
Yeah.
And often we're weaving little bits of video into our presentations of still photography. So it can be really complementary.
Yeah. So just final question before you send some things to us. I mean, it's interesting that mention of still photography versus moving photography, because as you say, people thought it was on the way out to some extent and going to be. Clearly from your experience, that is not the case. What is, in your view, kind of the singular advantage of still photography in the kind of reporting and coverage that you're producing? What is there a particular power to it, a particular
completely. I mean, I think we've seen it actually even more as we have gathered readers and viewers in our kind of online presence at The Guardian, because it's so easy to use a single image to signal or to sum up a story in a way that you can't with video. And I think, there are generations behind me who have this, incredible appetite for scrolling and for absorbing information quite swiftly. And I think the still image can really kind of help in the signaling of that. I mean, I think often there are times when you definitely want to see more than one picture. when a series can really help you to get a good sense of something.
Yes.
And I think that's, there's a balance then about whether you would want to insert a video or whether you would want to use a series of still photographs. But, there is an incredible power in a still photograph defining a moment.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's go to the presentation that you're going to make. Ilvy is going to be our technical assistant going through
Thank
that.
you, Ilvy.
Oh,
We'll
very
just shout
welcome.
out when you want the slide to advance.
Yes. So I just wanted to kind of start by showing you the range of different things that we publish here. So we have got, food supplements, newspapers, sports sections, fashion, lifestyle. These are published on a daily and a weekly basis at The Guardian and The Observer. And of course, it demands a great variety of skills to produce that type of photography, which we often do, at pace and with a mind on the budget.
Wait, something happened. The share stopped. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thanks so much, Ilvy, for doing this. We were having technical difficulties before. Yeah. So then, of course, we were originally really just a kind of a British newspaper, a UK-based news organization, and then the web came along. And so, Ilvy, if you click onto the next slide, you can see that obviously we are connected all over the world. And with this little link here, that little link, yes, perfect, right. So here we are looking at the front page of the UK edition online. We also now publish a European edition, an Australian edition, a US edition, and an international edition, all of which kind of serve up more bespoke stories to the ones that you find on the UK edition here. But again, you get this kind of sense of variety. We've got, opinion pieces. We've got what's on TV tonight, some film reviews, and we've got these amazing opportunities for photography. But what this has done really is it has changed the direction of travel for our organization, because we are really concerned with stories that have a global resonance, that kind of connect us around the world. We don't just want to be publishing stories about London or about England or about the UK. We want to be publishing stories that have a global reach, and that makes complete sense to our readers, to our footfall, and to our kind of business model as well. Because probably, as many of you know, The Guardian has never gone behind a paywall. So what you view online is, free up to a point, but you may wish to contribute if you value what we do. But it really helps us we wanted our journalism to have a really broad reach and not to exclude anybody. And this has been sort of part of the whole business model going forwards. So then, so this is just a little glimpse, for example, at our sources and how we view the pictures as picture editors every day. It's teeny tiny little thumbnails, all kind of, thundering into the digital picture desk from all over the world. And it's a real kind of mix of things, because they come in chronologically. So at any one point, you might have, something happening in Haiti, you might have a football match, you might have, an Academy Awards photograph, and they're all kind of intermingled as they sort of drop in chronological order. And hence, that's why we're very forensic about sifting through these and selecting those that we think are going to be most useful for the day.
So how do you actually do that, Fiona? Because how many people are in the team, for instance, on a daily basis doing this?
There's probably about kind of 5 or 6 who are looking at any one time doing the sifting, and we're sort of passing on a baton, if you like, every minute. So somebody might say, oh, I've looked at everything from midnight up till 6 a.m. So could somebody else make sure they've had eyes on this section? And I mean, it sounds like a funny thing to say, because we're making decisions quite swiftly, looking at thumbnail images about what may be useful to publish. But, your eye is in. It's a little bit like, spotting a camouflaged animal in a tree. Eventually, you kind of know what you're looking for, and you're in tune with what you're seeing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite a kind of magical thing.
So I don't know if there's an answer to this, but have the amount of images, has that been going up in recent years as well?
Yes, it has.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and I mean,
It's
you know,
gotta
if
be 40.
when we get to the point of, like, say, the night of the Oscars, I mean, that's a night when we might end up with 60,000 images. I mean,
Wow.
it's quite overwhelming, but we do have, you know, we can narrow down our search patterns so that we can search more exclusively along different subject matters, which does help from time to time, or you can exclude things you're searching for. But you know, I
Yeah.
don't know if there are any agency people on the call here, but all I would say is please do edit your feed before you send it in to us, because we don't need duplications and any more to look at, to be honest.
Little side note from Fiona.
Be rigorous. So I just wanted to kind of touch for a moment on, you know, what does make a good picture, what does stand out on the, you know, from the 30,000 a day. And one of the things that I think we're always looking for is we're looking for energy. We're looking for, you know, human reaction. We're looking for things that kind of connect us as human beings as well. What else? We're looking for really emotion, something that makes you feel. I mean, I can be quite. I do kind of use my instincts as a person when I'm looking for pictures to illustrate stories. And I think if something really moves me, I don't want to ignore it. That's why I choose it for the edit, because if it has an impact on me, if it moves me, there's a good chance that you may have a similar emotion to that picture too. And it's really about kind of finessing what's engaging and being alert to that kind of engagement level, because at the end of the day, you know, we want people to read our stories, and this engagement signal is absolutely crucial to draw people in to look at the story. So I've just got a kind of few examples of that here. This one was taken at the flooding that happened in Spain recently, and I think, you know, looking at that picture, it's very tender, very emotional. You can clearly see that these people have been, you know, hugely traumatized by their experience, and that kind of signals the importance of the story. And then
Such
I think
a sad picture.
it is incredibly, yeah, and also the previous picture in Gaza. I mean, you know, this is the other thing. Picture editors, they absorb a huge amount of human suffering, and that's, you know, it is incredibly difficult, and it's something that we shouldn't stop talking about. And I think we've only just begun to talk about
Talking
it.
about that, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a more recent talk, right, where people are more open about what it does to them. And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think we've all in our newsroom recently acknowledged that there are various moments in the news cycle that can become, you know, that can really capsize your mind, and give you a very difficult perspective to wrestle with. And that we need to discuss that with one another and support one another, and understand that even if you're not the person who's having the experience directly, because you're viewing such a, you know, you're quite saturated by you know, human suffering often, that it does have an effect on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, I'm not going to say that we're glad that Donald Trump is back, but he is a really good example, actually, of somebody who does, you know, he does gather a lot of media attention because he's very animated in his gestures.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's an interesting point. This photograph, I mean, yeah, you know, you talk about the power of a still image, and this was one of the most powerful photographs of that year. And it's the man is holding the hand of his dead child who's been crushed during the Turkish earthquake. And I know this photograph went on to be recognized by World Press as well. But this, you know, I think I was working as a picture editor on the day that this photograph came in, and, you know, again, there was an overwhelming feeling in the newsroom when we all looked at it collectively. Everybody had a similar response to it. It was extremely powerful, and, you know, and just so moving. And that, I do think that's exactly what you're looking for in a photograph to tell, you know, to hook you into a story.
Yeah.
And this is of a very similar nature, in that, you know, again, you've got a very harrowing moment for this person. And I mean, I've included this because it touches on a subject that's been very we've been reporting on very passionately at The Guardian. It's about climate crisis. And one of the things that we became involved in was a sort of study to find out what types of pictures engage people around climate crisis. And what was kind of coming out of the study is that the sort of slightly cliched image of the polar bear on the sort of melting iceberg had was no longer kind of resonating with people. It didn't make people think, oh, I should change my habits, or this is anything about me, or anything to do with me. So there was no kind of call to action in it. It had, people had almost become a little bit snowblind to that type of image. And what we realized was that, in putting the human being into the picture, it encouraged people to have an empathy for the situation. And so, I wouldn't say we don't always seek out the human story when we're talking about climate change or climate crisis, but definitely recognizing the human impact or the impact on humans. It allows you to ask the question, what if this was happening to me? Exactly. What can I do about this? And it just again sort of changes that depth of engagement that's really important. And there were, that's right, there's a few more examples of, where we had kind of sought out pictures where we had included a sort of, a person or a human element to really kind of drive home that feeling of empathy or of resonance. Oh, I think you were touching on the cheerleaders there as well.
There we go.
Yeah, so I've included this now, just kind of moving on to how we work with photographers. And this was a really fantastic project, actually, that was brought by somebody who is a regular freelance for The Guardian, Christian Sinibaldi. And Christian already had the kind of bones of this project. So he had been working a little bit in places that he's visited around the world on the kind of the youth phenomenon of cheerleading. And he brought it to our magazine editors and said, what do you think of this? Is it something you might like to publish? And I think they felt that the project wasn't quite complete, and they wanted to, the appetite really was for more places in the world or more corners of the world. So to really kind of give it a global feeling. So The Guardian did commit some more budget to Christian's project to allow him to extend and to finish it, to complete it. And then, so what we've got here is we've got cheerleading happening in, I think, let me just think now, Kazakhstan. There's cheerleading in Lagos, Greece, in the UK. And so we've kind of picked out these, I think there's some from Vietnam as well, from Hanoi. So we picked out these areas around the world, and Christian was able to go and make this complete kind of 360-degree kind of moment of connection, which is absolutely beautiful. And the reason I've shown you this one as well is because I wanted you to be able to kind of consider the layout in print, but then we also obviously have a representation of it in online as well, which there we go. Yes, you've got here, which is fantastic. So whenever we're making work together with photographers, we have to now consider how it will look in print, but also does it translate online, or even, reverse that. We've got something that we know will work brilliantly online. Will it translate into our onto our print products? It's great if these things will go in both directions. Sometimes they don't, but really kind of first and foremost now our emphasis is on our online journalism and what we present there. So, but this worked really beautifully. Often what we're having to struggle with as well is that we've got templating for some of our articles, which mean that pictures have to be presented at a certain size. So it's always brilliant if we can say to a photographer that when you're going to shoot a portrait, don't just shoot it in an upright portrait shape. Please move around, make sure that we get some landscapes, that we get some uprights, we get some pictures that will work as a square. These days, I think 80% of our online viewing comes on mobile phones, which is astonishing and but kind of incredible. And it does drive and change the way that we view photography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of kind of the balance in your work between how much time you and the team spends looking at the stream of 30,000 plus for news versus how much time you can give to longer term projects like this where individual photographers either come in or are commissioned and so on?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain kind of sections of picture editors who have an opportunity to spend longer. Those of us who are, I mean, I still kind of keep an eye on the daily churn. And I like to do that anyway, because it keeps me close to the stories that are current and topical. And I really like to know what photographers are working on at any one time. But yes, you know, people are kind of moved to one side in order to concentrate on longer term projects. And this is a really good example of something that had probably been brewing for a number of weeks. And then it would all be kind of curated and, you know, copywritten to accompany it. Actually, one of these photographs is now hanging on the walls of the National Portrait Gallery in London as part of the Taylor Wessing Photography Prize, which is amazing. It was just that, you know, that's how thoroughly successful it was. But I think as well, it just, there is a great energy and it's an incredibly uplifting subject matter. So it's really fun.
Do you think there are more opportunities now than in the past for these longer form stories, or are the opportunities fewer than before?
Okay, that's a really interesting question. I mean, I think certainly we've seen print is in decline, right? And that's something that we all acknowledge. So there are magazines that perhaps would have dedicated these spaces, or you know, or made their names through publishing you know, big pieces of reportage, photojournalism, visual-led stories. And I think that is in print a shrinking market, but not so online. So I think what we're seeing is, you know, a bigger variety of stories being told, and also they're now being told in a slightly different way, because, you know, we're looking here at something that is, you know, quite traditional photojournalism, but there is a real kind of blend in, you know, in our photography community between photojournalism and something that has a more artistic sense. So I think people are learning to tell stories in different ways.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, and that's valuable. There's a real point to that.
Yeah, definitely.
What have we got next?
There we go.
Ilvy?
We are.
Oh, yes. So I just wanted to, so, you know, we've talked a little bit about reportage and news, but of course we're also publishing fashion shoots that have to be kind of set up and sorted out. And then we're publishing kind of food photography, which again, you know, I tell you, food photography fascinates me because it is such a craft, never to be underestimated. I mean, there is a magic that has to happen to produce these kind of like really delicious looking, you know, displays of recipes every week. And it's actually a really big part of what we do. And I think you'll probably notice it's a big part of what our competitors do as well. You know, again, food is something that connects us all around the world. So, you know, it's got a great kind of a global resonance. And this is, you know, this is an evening behind the scenes at the BAFTAs that we publish every year, and it's like a beautiful opportunity for the photographer Sarah Lee to shoot in black and white. And she always gets this kind of lovely sort of classy glamour to the piece that she makes from this every year. So I just wanted to kind of show you the variety. Some of the things that we're doing are about educating, informing, but some of them are about also, you know, it's entertainment, it's lifestyle, it kind of reflects the whole of the kind of rich world that we live in today.
I really love how much room photography gets. Also in the cheerleading story, it's just not an endless scroll, but there's so much variety. And also a page like this, you don't see that very often. I really
Exactly. I mean, actually, this is something that's been kind of baked into our newspaper for quite a long time, is that we have this center page spread called Eyewitness. And I mean, I can tell you that when we, as picture editors, when it was first introduced to us as a concept, we were going, oh my goodness, how are we going to fill that space every day? And to this, you know, we've been doing it now for what, maybe about 15 years. We've never had a newspaper come out with a big space in the middle saying "Pick to come see Fiona." So I'm really glad for that. I mean, it's been really successful, and people write to us and say, you know, how much they enjoy it, or you know, and just the fact that we give that space to photography, it's, you know, as you say, it's incredibly rare, and you know, and it makes me really proud to work for an organization that does such a thing.
Gorgeous. Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, I wanted to show you this little bit about sports photography as well, because this is a brilliant photo essay that our picture editor, Johnny Weeks, put together after the Olympics. And it was about how to shoot some of the best photos that we saw during the Olympics. And he actually, so he made the selection, and then he contacted all the photographers and really kind of dug into how they made the pictures. I mean, sports photography, again, a bit like food photography, is an incredible craft. A lot of this is about, it's often where you see some of the most exciting developments in technology as well, because, you know, you've got people using remote cameras, people, you know, playing with motion blur to really kind of get that feeling of speed and also precision. You really have to get the moment. You've got to find the energy and the emotion in any situation, and it all has to happen really fast. We have a sports photographer on The Guardian, Tom Jenkins, and he, you know, he's up against, you know, the agency photographers who have got quite an amount of kind of tech and help to make sure that their pictures land, you know, the most swiftly on the news desks around, or the picture desks around the world. And Tom never fails to, he never lets us down. He never fails to, you know, to bring the picture to the picture desk at the right moment. And it's just such an incredible craft. So it's a really good read, actually, for anybody who's got a bit
it's lovely
day. Yeah, it's really nicely put together.
Yeah, for any photographer, this is so interesting to see the exact lens and the shutter speed, and then the description of how it was done.
Yeah, yeah.
Lots of preparation goes into sports photography, I would say, compared to documentary, because you have to set things up.
And you know, you really, as a sports photographer, you really have to educate yourself around the sport that you're photographing. You know, who the main competitors are, for example, where you might need to position yourself on the pitch or at the side of this, you know, or in the stadium, what's going to make the best picture, and who is going to make the best picture, and you need to know that. And so again, that's where, you know, experience, expertise, and, you know, and intellect comes into play to make, you know, to make successful photographs like this.
So ideas like this, is that specifically made by the sports desks, or
yes, I mean, this one was, you know, Johnny Weeks, the photo editor, came up with this idea, presented it to the sports editor, and said, you know, do you mind me spending a bit of time on this? And it was, you know, it was such a successful project, and it's been viewed by, you know, thousands of people around the world.
Yeah, people really want to know how to do this themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. That's one of Tom Jenkins, the kayaking picture that was just there. So yeah.
Amazing.
Really. It's such a rich viewing opportunity. So I'd encourage you all to click the link later.
Because being online, you know, people in the organization are able to track actually how many people view and read articles. And so do those metrics, do you see those metrics? Do they play an important part of the decision-making process? How do you consider things that are popular or not popular, and so on?
Yeah, I mean, we do track them, and we can see how many people are visiting or paying attention to a particular story, because I mean, one thing is somebody might land on a story or a visual presentation, and then we can also tell within seconds if they've left it. And so we might ask ourselves questions about why they didn't stay for longer, why they didn't delve a little bit deeper. In all honesty, there was a time, probably about maybe 8 years ago, when we were really getting quite experimental with how we displayed things online. And we were, you know, moving in a lot of kind of looping video, and we wanted like little portraits that when your mouse hovered on them, they would start to move, or we would have audio being blended into that. And what we discovered was at that time, really, because people were starting to engage more on their mobile phones than anything else, there was a kind of loading period that meant that people would click on the item, wait for it to load. Well, hey, if it takes too long to load, they're going to just drift off to the next thing.
Wow.
So we ended up kind of like doing a little bit of a reverse and simplifying a bit. I mean, I think now we're getting to a point where the tech has now caught up, and we again are about to kind of launch into perhaps a more experimental phase where we can show things off, you know, with more texture, I think, than we do at the moment.
I really loved that's kind of back in the day, after the rolls of film though, but a bit long ago for some of the viewers here, maybe Firestorm. That was yours, right? That was The Guardian, Firestorm.
Yeah.
But that's like 15 years ago already, which...
I mean, it's incredible. I think
beautiful.
there was this moment where everybody was you know, kind of desperate to try all these new tricks,
Video, audio.
and you know, and I think yes, it's quite right that we should try them. We do want to be progressive, and we do want to keep up with, you know, with the mood and the appetite, and you know, and the way people are digesting their information these days. I mean, a lot of young people now really get a lot of information from TikTok. So you know, I think we have to consider how we present ourselves on different social media platforms as well. We all, you know, we do present on Instagram, we do present on Facebook as well, but you know, as we know in our generation, Facebook is not as popular these days.
Yeah, I did see some positive news today that longer reels within Instagram are becoming more popular. So instead of 10 seconds, the 30-second one is more popular. So maybe we are winning back some, I don't know, audience engagement. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think so. I mean, we can't just, you know, all drift through our lives, just, you know, selecting things and just, you know, digesting them on a very superficial level, can we? Or we'd learn nothing.
I totally agree. Oh, well, that's
right. So I just
then.
want to talk a little moment. I was going to tell you a bit about this particular project, which came to The Guardian really because I had met the photographer at a photography event. And so another thing I wanted to kind of say to the community who might be listening today is it's really, really helpful to, you know, present your work for portfolio reviews. Don't underestimate the value of entering competitions, for example. Do go along to photo festivals and kind of, you know, there is now a really vibrant photography community all over the world. I met Irena, I think actually at a World Press event. She showed me her work then. We exchanged, you know, contact details, and she brought this to The Guardian. And, you know, I mean, it's just such a fantastic, I mean, she's a wonderful photographer. She brings such a witty eye to everything that she does as well. And this is a project about the culture of men with long hair in a particular part of Ecuador. And it's just been photographed with great warmth and, you know, the complicity of the subjects. And, you know, there's some humor in it as well. And so I was really delighted, you know, to meet Irina and to find the work. But, you know, we find it often by stepping out of our offices and getting to meet one another and really making the most of those opportunities. So, yeah, I take part in, myself and all of the team we take part in portfolio reviews. We go to we visit photo festivals. We all take part in sitting on judging panels for photography competitions. And it's a great way of unearthing new work.
I think this is such a good story, which also shows things don't have to be newsy, or you really have a very broad scope of slower stories too.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, the news, because it's our core business, and we are all aware that we live in a world that is, you know, the reality of it at times can be unremittingly grim. And, you know, to find a story like this that is told in such a, you know, in such a generous way, with such a tender eye, and, you know, with a kind of feeling of fun, it's just, I think it's just something that's really rewarding for all of us, isn't it?
Absolutely. Let me see where we are.
Yeah, and then another of a similar nature, because I actually met the photographer at the Perpignan Photo Festival. Although I'd seen her work, it had crossed my desk when I was judging a photography competition. But then we met, we exchanged email addresses, and she presented this like really magical story about this the coldest place on earth.
Wow.
And we published it just at the moment that we were going into British wintertime. So we're all starting to kind of think, oh, you know, we've got some difficult cold months ahead, and it just really resonated so beautifully. And then we kind of played around with a slightly different way of presenting this, with the kind of text moving in parallax. It's a great way of giving you a lot of photography without the kind of endless scrolling, which works really brilliantly with this.
Beautifully done.
Yeah, it's just such a wonderfully photographed piece of work.
Yeah, this is lovely.
Yeah. So again, you know, you can't always wait for these things to come to you. You have to kind of get out there and make a point of meeting the people, finding out who's making the work. And, you know, the whole team here at the Guardian and Observer make a huge effort to do that. And then, oh yeah, so this is a great project made by a Nigerian photographer, and Andrew Asebo. And Andrew had made this work with our Guardian global development team. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about how that works. So, you know, yes, we have a budget for pictures, and our budget kind of covers the pictures that we buy in from agencies, etc., the commissions that we do every day, and our staffing, etc. And really, kind of once we get to the end of the year, there's not much left. But we are fortunate at the Guardian that we have this philanthropic foundation funding. So there are philanthropists who they will give us sort of an award of money to publish stories on a particular topic or subject. This one was published under the umbrella of global development. And the great thing about this philanthropic funding is that the philanthropists, yes, they can choose the subject, but they can't have any they can't have any say over the editorial direction. So that's entirely up to the Guardian editors. So there is still, we retain that kind of impartiality. So editorial control stays within the Guardian. So that's really important to say. But it's great because it allows us to kind of do a little bit of you know, a deeper dive into something. This story, in case it's not apparent, is about it's a solutions-based story. It's about recycling tires in Lagos. And the tires are made into kind of swings in playgrounds. They're made into benches. They're made into seats. They're made into fences. And it's just, you know, like it's a really clever story. Now, on this occasion, the photographer didn't write the text themselves, but what we did was we teamed them up with a journalist, and the journalist interviewed him about his experience making the work and kind of extracted his knowledge about the set of circumstances. So, I mean, you know, I've already said right at the beginning of this that writing is not my strength. And I understand that many people who work in visual journalism do so because they're not entirely comfortable with writing. And so it's great if you are, but if you're not, there are always other ways that we can, you know, that we can find to, you know, to make a photo essay and give that extra layer of information.
Yeah.
Pitching stories.
Pitching stories.
Yes.
Yeah. So
we always have many questions about that, but I think this slide kind of answers. And also, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't really see what kinds of questions are coming into the chat or into.
Well, that's okay. I can see the questions, and we do have one question about how to make
yes.
a
go on.
How to get to you, probably how to get a pitch to you.
Yeah, the question is from Haber. How can emerging photographers who have no connections or relationships with anyone in the Guardian get photo stories published? How, as a freelance photographer, can you get access to the FTP system you mentioned? But I think it's the general question of.
Yeah, I mean,
how
all of
kind
the,
of kind of how
all
to
of the,
pitch and how you like to receive a pitch.
yeah, I mean, so first of all, yes, we look, you know, through we're looking for work through portfolio reviews and photo competitions and et cetera, as I've just said. But really anybody can make a pitch to us. The first thing I'm going to say here is that I'm not alone here, that I receive about 250 emails a day. I mean, it's kind of a bit of an insanity. But if you're pitching to me directly, we've now kind of created a little sort of steering committee of photo editors here. And once a week, we are trying to carve out the time to look through all the pitches that we receive and kind of collectively do a kind of quick yes and no, because I know there's nothing more frustrating than, first of all, not receiving any reply from your email. I mean, honestly, I think it's rude. It's not my intention never to reply to people. So we do what we can to make sure that people do receive a response, and also a kind of relatively swift one, because often the work that you're pitching is quite time sensitive, and if it's something that we don't want to publish, then you need to get it out to somebody else and be sure that you can. So you can pitch to, I think it's photo.pitches@theguardian.com. Now I've said that out loud. There'll be a deluge, I'm sure.
Yes.
Or you can pitch to me, or you can send to the general picture desk. But any which way, there will be a team of us who will try to make a point of answering on a weekly basis. So in order to get the attention of a busy person, and I learned this on a management course once, the smart thing to do is to pitch in a pyramid form. So be really clear, almost like a headline of the subject matter. Then have maybe a paragraph, a brief paragraph, just expanding a little on what your story is. And then in the third layer, the deepest layer, you can be more, you can give a lot more detail about your project. But for me, the thing that I want to see is I want to see the strength of your photography. So always include a PDF that shows your photographs. I mean, and most picture editors can tell kind of more or less in a heartbeat whether it's something that they want to spend a little bit more time with. But and that the first line I've put there as well is consider who you're pitching to. I mean, I would say do understand, or have a really good understanding of the publication you're pitching to. Have an understanding of whether they've published something similar recently and therefore may not be looking to publish again. So just make sure that you've kind of completely informed yourself. Inform yourself about the story, how your story is resonating in your, in the world today, and who's publishing about it, how they're doing so, and make sure that you're not, kind of covering ground that we have already covered very recently, because that's just kind of a bit daft.
Research, everyone.
Exactly, research. And it's easy to do. You can do it on your phone.
Yep.
Oh, especially with you guys, it's easy to see because you have the open system without
exactly.
So it's very easy to check with the Guardian if it has been published already. So then people attach a PDF, no download links and stuff like that, I presume.
Yeah, please do not send me a link to a Dropbox to download. There is a really good chance that, I'll go, oh, I'll do that in a minute when I've got a bit more time, and I may never get back to it. So that's why a PDF, because you can just see in a heartbeat, at a glance, the strength of somebody's photography. It's so useful. Exactly. And then I think, Ilvy, I remember hearing you talk once about pitching. And one of the things that you said, which is, again, it really resonated with me, was that see if you can work out what is relevant about your pitch, what makes it current, what makes it topical, and include that in your first paragraph, in like the second layer of your pyramid. So
yeah, you can't really
immediately why it's relevant.
What I've seen when teaching is that a lot of photographers think that editors around the world know everything from every country, like what's happening today in Ecuador or in Peru or in Zimbabwe. And it's not always the case that that there's an election coming up in a month or two. So
yeah, exactly. We try to know everything, but we simply can't.
No, there's no way.
Kind of like the middle line there that I've got about editing Again, this is something that was shown to me by a fellow photo editor from another publication, and
Who is watching, Fiona?
Sorry,
he's here with us now.
Is he here with us? Okay, Thomas Borgen, I have to credit you for edit, because of course, it's one of those things. It is incredibly difficult to edit your own work as a photographer. So always get somebody, because you're too close to it. You're really involved, and you need. It's very hard to extract yourself and work out what it is that other people see in it. So do ask a friend, get another colleague, somebody to look over and just kind of do a little litmus test of what are those images that mean something to them, or that catch their eye, or that elicit a gasp, or some form of reaction. I think it's really, really helpful to get somebody to look over your work. And by the way, don't include something that's out of focus, or that you don't believe in yourself, because it can kind of destroy a series if there is something in it that's a little bit second rate. So do be ruthless as well. And then that kind of consider flow and rhythm to avoid a flat line. It's almost like including punctuation marks in something that you're writing, or putting a little bit of salt and pepper into a recipe. Just make sure that you have a flow to how you're presenting your work, and especially if it's a series. And then this is another thing that I think that Thomas speaks about really, really well, which is about taking a risk and being brave. Because you've seen now that I look at these tiny little thumbnails all the time, and I want something to jump out at me and give me that little kind of moment of, oh my goodness, look at how astonishingly somebody photographed that. It doesn't always come from taking the most obvious route. And I think when you're following a brief, yes, you do want to make sure that you are delivering something that's appropriate for that brief and to that publication, but also just throw into the mix something a little bit other that will surprise a picture editor, because that might just be the hook that you need.
This is extremely helpful. I'm pretty sure everyone behind their desks are now, behind their laptops, are writing stuff down.
I've got a couple of questions, actually.
Yeah, go on.
Relating to pictures
there's
from
many
people in the audience. One is, Fiona, do you prefer pictures prior to the production of work? I think actually, if we go back to the cheerleading example, that story, you said the photographer actually came in with part of the story,
yes,
and then went away to develop. Is that a standard way of working, or does it just depend?
It does just depend. I mean, sometimes a story will develop simply out of a pitched idea. But I really think that because there are so many people pitching these days, that is quite rare, and you're not necessarily sure what you're going to get at the end of it, unless you're working with somebody that you already know and you can be pretty sure of. And sometimes what we do is, somebody will come up with an idea and say, look, I'm looking for some grant, for some grant funding for this. So would you perhaps do me a letter of interest that will help me to get the grant? And then because you've done the letter of interest, I'll come back and show you the finished work. We haven't given any guarantees of publication, but we have kind of facilitated that work being made. But I think, in all honesty, it's incredibly risky for somebody to come to me with a pitch. I don't quite know what I'm going to get, and I'm going to have to commit a lot of money to it in advance. It would be rare for that to happen.
So better to have some sample of work, beginning to start with.
Yeah, something to show. Yeah,
excellent. A question from Tobias: is it worth pitching a whole piece that is text and image? Do you accept that, or? Yes,
we do. I mean, there's a really good example. One's gone up today. Finbar O'Reilly has done an incredible piece of work on the fishing trawlers in Ireland, looking at what the kind of state of the fishing industry is. And Finbar photographed it all and wrote all the words.
Yeah, excellent. Yes. One of our newest, latest 7 contributing photographers, Finbar.
Excellent.
We're very happy to have him as part of the group.
Yeah, but that's a really good example of how one person has been able to bring the whole thing together, and it's great to do that. But please don't be discouraged, as I say, if writing is not your thing. We can always find another way.
Yeah, and as someone has just pointed out, Finbar actually did start as a journalist before becoming a photographer, so he has that slight advantage when it comes to writing. But
yes.
A question from Haber, which I think is an interesting one. You talked about don't underestimate the value of entering competitions. They ask, what about paid competitions where people have to pay to enter? Is there a differential status of competitions, paid versus unpaid?
That's a good question. I mean, I think I understand that paid competitions happen because often the administration that goes behind a paid competition, it can be quite elaborate. I think maybe just keep a little eye on, who the industry professionals are, where they're taking part, and perhaps like whose attention you want to attract.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of so some of the competitions that, yes, I've taken part in the lens culture competitions, for example, and some of my other colleagues have as well. But World Press, okay, that's a particular standard. But then, there's the Taylor Wessing Portrait Prize. I think there may be a small fee to enter that. I think you're going to end up in a kind of mix of all of that, really. And it's the same with portfolio reviews. Some of them you do have to pay a small fee to enter. Some are free, and maybe a really good thing that Seven could do is to share lists of those to photographers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are afraid that some of these awards are kind of a scam to make money. I always try to see, if I don't know the award and they ask money and I don't know the name, I always try to see who's on the jury.
Yes.
9 out of 10 times that also shows you if it's legit or not.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I would do that. I would just have a little scan as to who's on the jury before you enter a competition. And that'll give you a really good idea anyway, whether it's worth your while, because, if it's mainly book publishers and that's not what you're looking for, then you don't want to be there. Or if it's, if it's mainly news picture editors and you're not working in reportage, then you probably don't want to be there. So yeah, it's horses for courses, really.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we have time for a couple more questions if someone in the audience wants to drop those in.
I have a question for you, actually, Fiona, because you just came back from the photo festival in Lagos.
In Abidjan.
In Abidjan, sorry.
Yeah,
and I was wondering if you also have some advice for photographers when it comes to live pitching, so basically portfolio reviews, how to behave, some do's and don'ts, what not to do when meeting an editor at a photo festival and showing your portfolio.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I think consider who it is you're meeting. And before you go, really think about what it is you're hoping to get from that person. Because you might come to see me because you want me to publish your work in the Guardian, in which case come with your current story. But then it might not be that. It might be that you actually just need some help and advice in developing a story. So I think the first thing is be certain what it is you hope to get out of the portfolio review in the first place. I have seen people who simply just kind of like bring some random work, and then we're going, oh yeah, this is nice, but what is the point of this discussion? And so I think be really clear about your brief before you turn up, and work out who it is you want to see and what you hope to get to achieve from that.
Beautiful.
Does the Guardian ever organise portfolio reviews, or do you just?
No, we haven't actually. We haven't done that, but we all take part in so many of them. There's a couple of like really big portfolio reviews that happen in the UK that we can get to easily. But so since COVID, actually, it's been really a sort of it's totally changed the way that we connect with one another, hasn't it? Because we can now do portfolio reviews online. It's really phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly.
I just realized we also
there was just this one.
Because then after that I can stop sharing and we can all see each other.
Yeah. So I actually went to see this Tony Ray Jones. He was a photographer in the kind of 60s and 70s who did a lot of work around sort of street photography and societal issues and political issues in Britain at the time. And he was very, very talented and very admired. And he died too young, really, way before his time. And he was a great loss. And I remember going to see an exhibition of his where one of the exhibits was this page from his notebook. And there was something in the notebook that, you know, I mean, they're all like really amazing, like, you know, get more involved, you know, stay with the subject matter, be patient, take simple pictures and all of this kind of thing. But the one thing that really jumped out at me was don't take boring pictures. And that's,
I love it.
honestly, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I say to my team often, and also, you know, the editors around me, if a picture is dull, please do not use it. We don't, you know, we don't need dull pictures in our lives. It's all. If we're talking about engagement here, there is no room for a boring or a dull picture. So don't show it to me. Don't send it to me, and we mustn't publish them.
I love it. Everything on the list is great.
Through. I mean, I can't say that we're, you know, kind of 100% lively and exciting, but you know, that is the aim.
Beautiful. Not all eye level, no middle distance, get in closer. Watch camera shake. This is a great list. It's very
great list. Yeah.
Thank
you very
you.
much, Ray Jones.
There. Now we
Fiona, one final question from the audience. I think this is quite a big question. Is there an issue that you think always strikes you as an underreported issue? One that you don't see work on, but you would like to see work on? I mean, there are many unreported issues, there are many important issues, but is there anything personally that leaps out for you as an underreported or unreported issue?
I mean, we definitely get stuck on the big headlines. And I think that can become sort of really problematic. It's funny because, I mean, recently there was an item on the radio news this morning about Sudan, and I was thinking it's really difficult because all the noise has been around Gaza and Lebanon lately, and also Ukraine, and of course Sudan is an epic humanitarian crisis that we're not talking about as much. So there is always this kind of dilemma of, you know, space and what occupies the space, and it is really problematic. But the other thing is that I think we've all been guilty in the past of telling these kind of like these quite sort of you know, grim stories about places. And of course, what we know is that life is much richer than just the kind of the bad headlines. And actually, you know, I've just been at this photo festival in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. And one of the reasons that the director started the festival is because she wants to reframe the African continent to the rest of the world, so that we do not consider the African continent simply as starving people and conflict. So in order to break that down and to find the new stories, then one, we have to show an interest in new stories, absolutely, and find spaces for those. And the second thing is to ask people who are living in those countries and those communities, like, tell us your stories, tell us the stories you want to tell, and not just the things that we think we ought to know about. And that changes the dynamic completely. So you know, I mean, I've got a couple of ideas that have come from that I think, you know, I've now sort of, I've talked about with photographers that I've met there that will, you know, completely change the way we, you know, the types of stories we publish, and the way that we, you know, that we frame people in different parts of the world who have only ever been seen through kind of one particular lens.
Yeah, good point.
Does that make sense?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah,
a good substantive point to finish on, I think. Fiona, you've been very generous with your time and lots of practical suggestions, which is greatly appreciated. Just two things to conclude. First of all, I want to thank Photo Wings, our partner, for making events like this possible, the Photo Editors series. People have got lots of questions about that, but if you go back, and I think we're up to a dozen or more editors now who we've spoken to, and everyone does converge on some very similar points about how to pitch and so on. So it's worth, you're in the audience, worth going back to look at that. But I wanted to conclude with a comment from Christine Nesbitt, who's in the audience. So Christine, thank you for joining us. She says, Fiona, you're making me believe in photography the way I did when I was younger. Thank you for re-inspiring me.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you very much for making that remark, because that inspires me too.
And she concludes, thank you for your work and love of photography. So I think we've all felt that and benefited from that today. So Fiona, we know you have a train to catch, so thank you very, very much for your time.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Fiona. Thanks, everyone.
It's such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for making it such an incredible experience. Thank you.
Right. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.